Women aren't as mysterious as they seem, if you listen closely. She desires emotional safety, not control. She wants to be chosen, not chased. Purpose turns her on more than presence. Independence isn't distance, it's confidence. Her desires evolve, adapt, don't resist. Lead calmly, love deeply, and she'll meet you fully. Women desire emotional leadership not because they are incapable of leading themselves, but because it allows them to relax into their natural emotional rhythm. Emotional leadership isn't about dominating, controlling, or constantly making decisions. It's about guiding with steadiness, empathy, and presence. When a woman feels that you're emotionally grounded, she can trust you to hold space for her in moments when her own emotions may feel overwhelming or uncertain. Most men misunderstand what emotional leadership really is. It's not about fixing her problems. It's not about suppressing her emotions or telling her to calm down. That's emotional laziness, not leadership. Emotional leadership is when you are the calm in her storm. When life throws challenges at her, she looks to see if you remain composed. That stillness tells her that you're a safe place to land, that her chaos won't scare you off, that you're anchored enough for the both of you. This doesn't mean you have to have all the answers, but it does mean you show up with emotional maturity. A woman feels deeply, and when you try to out-logic her emotions or treat them as problems to fix, she feels dismissed. Instead, when you listen without defensiveness, acknowledge her feelings without judgment, and stay rooted in your own emotional self-awareness, she feels seen, understood, safe. Women are intuitive. They can sense when a man is emotionally unstable, reactive, or hiding. When you can't regulate your emotions, she begins to feel like she has to do it for you, and nothing exhausts a woman more than constantly having to be strong because the man won't hold himself together. A man who lacks emotional leadership creates emotional labor, but a man who leads emotionally creates peace. Now here's the real secret. When a woman feels emotionally led, she blossoms. She's more affectionate, more playful, more sensual, because she knows she doesn't have to protect herself. Her feminine energy flourishes when your masculine energy is emotionally consistent. It doesn't require being stoic or emotionless. On the contrary, it means being emotionally intelligent, able to feel and still lead. Many men chase physical dominance or financial success, thinking these things will attract women. But it's emotional leadership that truly creates connection. When you can meet her in the storm and not run away, when you can hold her hand without trying to drag her out of it, but rather walk with her through it, that's where intimacy lives. That's where desire lives. So no, women don't want someone to take over their lives, but they want someone who can take charge of themselves, who can lead with love, listen without reacting, and be strong enough to stay when things get messy. That's emotional leadership, and that's what she's really craving, even if she doesn't say it out loud. There's a subtle but powerful difference between being chased and being chosen, and most people miss it entirely. Chasing often comes from desperation, an anxious need to win someone over, to prove your worth, to seek validation. But being chosen is intentional, it's selective. It says, I see you, I know your value, and I want you, not because I need to, but because I choose to. Women don't want to be pursued in the way most men have been taught. The over-messaging, the over-calling, the constant attention that crosses the line from interest into obsession. It's not romantic, it's suffocating. It makes her feel like she's being hunted, not appreciated, like she's a prize to be won, instead of a partner to connect with. Chasing puts her on a pedestal out of fear, but choosing puts her beside you out of confidence. To be chosen is to be seen. A woman wants to feel like you've taken the time to know her, to understand who she is beneath the surface, not just because she's beautiful or because she fits some ideal, but because there's something in her spirit, her essence that resonates with you deeply. That's what makes her feel chosen, when your attention feels deliberate, not desperate. When a man chases, he often loses himself in the process. He stops being authentic and starts performing, trying to impress, trying to win favor. And women sense that. It feels inauthentic. But when you're grounded in your own worth and you approach her from a place of self-respect, your energy shifts. You're not chasing her approval. You're inviting her into something mutual, something real. And here's what most men don't realize. Women want to feel special, but not at the cost of your integrity. When you chase everyone, your attention means nothing. But when you're selective, when you know what you want, and you're not afraid to walk away from what doesn't serve you, that's attractive. That's powerful. That makes a woman pause and lean in. Choosing also requires patience. It's not about flooding her with constant effort in the early days to impress her. It's about being consistent, intentional, and sincere. It's about showing up with actions, not just words. It's about building a connection based on respect, not just chemistry. A woman desires the kind of man who doesn't need to chase because he already knows his value. He's not intimidated by her independence or her strength. He respects it. And because he respects himself too, he won't beg for attention. He'll give it where it's deserved. And when he finds a woman who aligns with his values, energy, and vision, he chooses her fully, not out of lack, but out of clarity. That's the difference. That's what creates trust, desire, and emotional intimacy. When she knows she's not being pursued for sport, but chosen with intention, she can finally relax into the relationship. Not to perform, not to compete, but to connect. That's what she truly wants. Psychological safety is one of the deepest, most essential desires a woman has in a relationship, though it's rarely spoken out loud. It's not about physical protection or financial security, although those may play a role. What she craves most is to feel emotionally safe. Safe to be herself, safe to express, safe to be vulnerable without judgment, manipulation, or punishment. Without this, no matter how loving or romantic the surface may seem, a relationship will never feel right to her. Women live in a world where they are constantly told to shrink, to filter themselves, to not be too much. So when a man creates a space where she feels she can show up fully as she is, her moods, her dreams, her insecurities, her truth, that space becomes sacred. She blossoms not because you let her, but because you don't make her fear the consequences of being real. When she feels psychologically safe, she stops pretending and starts trusting. Most people think safety means avoiding conflict, but real safety is being able to navigate conflict well. It's knowing that even when you disagree, you won't belittle her, mock her feelings, or withdraw love as a punishment. It means you won't weaponize her vulnerability later. You listen to understand, not to control. That kind of presence builds a foundation stronger than charm ever could. Safety is also built through consistency. Emotional inconsistency creates anxiety. If today you're warm and engaged, but tomorrow you're cold and distant without explanation, she starts questioning everything. Her mind goes into survival mode, trying to decode what she did wrong or how to fix it. That's not love. That's emotional exhaustion. But when you're emotionally consistent, when your words match your actions, she relaxes. She doesn't have to keep guessing. You don't have to have all the answers to make her feel safe, but you do have to be honest. If you're uncertain, say so. If you're upset, communicate clearly, not through silence, sarcasm, or passive aggression. When you model openness, she feels safe to do the same. That mutual emotional transparency is where deep intimacy grows. One of the greatest misunderstandings is thinking a woman's emotional expressions are irrational. They're not. They're information. When a woman knows she can bring her feelings to you without being dismissed, she feels like she's not just tolerated, she's understood. And that understanding is the gateway to connection. It's not always about being her protector. It's about not being the source of her fear. Psychological safety means she doesn't have to shrink to keep the peace. She doesn't have to walk on eggshells or filter her truth. She can breathe, speak, feel, and know that you're emotionally steady enough to hold that space with her. When a woman finds that kind of safety in a man, she lets her guard down. Her softness returns. Her joy becomes effortless, not because she's been won over, but because she finally feels safe enough to be seen. And that kind of connection is rare, powerful, and unforgettable. A woman's independence is not a threat. It's not a rejection. It's not her pulling away. In fact, it's often a sign that she feels comfortable enough to be herself without needing to shrink to make a man feel secure. Unfortunately, many men misread her need for space, her ambition, or her desire to be alone as disinterest. But independence is not the opposite of love. It can be one of its clearest expressions. When a woman values her own time, her goals, her friendships, or even her silence, it doesn't mean she's emotionally unavailable. It means she has cultivated a relationship with herself. And here's the truth most people miss. A woman who maintains her individuality is often more capable of showing up fully in a relationship, because she's not looking for a man to complete her. She's looking for someone to complement her. Some men feel insecure when a woman doesn't constantly depend on them. They see her strength as a wall instead of what it truly is, a boundary. But a healthy woman with independence isn't pushing you away. She's inviting you to meet her at her level. She doesn't want to lose herself in love. She wants to share herself in love. When a woman says she needs time alone, she's not creating distance to escape you. She's recharging, reflecting, connecting with her inner world so she can return more grounded, more centered, more present. A woman who abandons herself for a relationship may become resentful, but a woman who honors her own identity brings depth and richness into the partnership. Men who don't understand this often become clingy, jealous, or emotionally reactive. They ask too many questions, become suspicious, or take her space personally. That energy drives her further away, not because she doesn't care, but because she can't be her full self under that emotional pressure. The most attractive thing you can offer an independent woman is trust. Trust in who she is. Trust in the connection you've built. Trust that space doesn't mean separation. The best relationships aren't built by people who constantly fuse their identities. They're built by individuals who know who they are and choose to intertwine parts of their lives without losing themselves. A woman who is independent isn't saying she doesn't need love. She's saying she doesn't need control. She doesn't want to be owned, managed, or molded. She wants to be appreciated for her strength, not resented for it. So when she asks for time to herself, when she focuses on her passions or sets boundaries, don't assume she's pulling away. Don't make her independence about your insecurities. Instead, meet her with your own sense of wholeness. Celebrate her freedom. Stand beside her, not in front of her. That's how intimacy grows, when two complete people come together, not to escape themselves, but to expand together. That's real love. That's emotional maturity, and that's what she's truly drawn to. There's a difference between a man who simply shows up and a man who shows up with purpose. Presence is nice. It means you're physically there. But purpose? That's magnetic. It speaks to something deeper. It tells her that you're not just drifting through life hoping something will happen. You're moving with intention. And that is what truly captures a woman's desire. A man with purpose has direction. He has vision. He has a why behind the way he lives. And it doesn't have to be grand or world-changing. It just has to be real. It's not about how much money you make or how many followers you have. It's about the fire in your eyes when you talk about something that matters to you. It's about waking up each day with something that pulls you forward, even when no one's watching. Women are deeply intuitive. They can feel when a man is lost, even if he hides it behind charm or attention. A man who has no purpose can become emotionally heavy in a relationship. He starts depending on her to give his life meaning, to fill the void he won't acknowledge. And over time, that energy becomes draining. Not because she doesn't love you, but because you're asking her to be your purpose, when she was never meant to carry that weight. Purpose creates polarity. When a woman sees you committed to something outside the relationship, something that lights you up, challenges you, or even frustrates you, it ignites her interest. She's turned on not just by your presence, but by your passion. Your mission makes you more attractive because it shows that your life has depth and momentum. You're not standing still, and you're not expecting her to be your entire world. That's confidence. That's leadership. That's desire. It's important to understand that purpose doesn't mean neglect. Some men swing too far in the other direction and use purpose as an excuse to emotionally check out. That's not strength. That's avoidance. A man rooted in purpose knows how to balance focus with connection. He can be fully present with her, but he doesn't lose himself in her. He doesn't drop everything the moment she calls, not because he doesn't care, but because he knows his mission matters too. That balance creates respect. What women find deeply attractive is when you stand for something, when your life means something to you, when your purpose is not just something you do, it's a reflection of who you are. That energy is powerful, it's inspiring, and it invites her to lean in, not because you need her, but because your life is already rich and she wants to be a part of it. So, don't underestimate the power of purpose. Show up, not just with time, but with direction, with drive, with fire. When you live with that kind of clarity, you don't need to chase women. They recognize your energy and are naturally drawn to it. Not because you were available, but because you were aligned. There's a reason why women are drawn to calm, grounded men. It balances the natural chaos of feminine energy. Not chaos in a negative sense, but in the way that femininity is fluid, emotional, intuitive, and ever-changing. It moves like water, unpredictable, deep, expressive. And when that emotional flow meets a man who is rooted, unshaken, and steady, something powerful happens. She relaxes. She feels safe. She feels seen without needing to explain herself. That's the attraction. Masculine calm isn't about being cold or emotionless. It's about being centered. It's the kind of presence that says, I can handle this. I'm not going to run. Most women don't expect you to fix their feelings or even fully understand them. They just want to know that you won't crumble in the presence of their vulnerability, that you won't get defensive when they express something messy, that you can hold steady even when she's in a storm. Women experience the world emotionally. It's how they connect. So when a woman is expressing herself with intensity or passion, it's often not about solving anything. It's about release. It's about connection. But if you meet her fire with more fire, if you get triggered, reactive, or try to control her emotions, it leads to conflict or emotional shutdown. On the other hand, when you respond with calm, with breath, with presence, you disarm the chaos. You create a container where she can safely express without fear of being judged, punished, or dismissed. This is why so many women feel drawn to men who seem grounded, quiet, emotionally intelligent, not because they're boring or passive, but because they provide the balance that allows her to feel. And when she feels, she opens, emotionally, mentally, sexually. That's the gift of calm masculine energy. It invites her deeper. But masculine calm isn't something you perform. It's something you cultivate. It comes from knowing yourself, from regulating your own emotions, from being aware of your triggers and choosing not to react impulsively. It's not about suppressing your feelings, but owning them. A man who can say, I hear you, let's talk about this when we're both clearer, is far more powerful than a man who shouts to be heard. There's also something incredibly attractive about a man who doesn't need to match her energy to connect. When she's spinning with emotions and you remain anchored, not dismissive, but steady, she feels your strength. She knows she can lean on you. That kind of emotional integrity is rare, and it's unforgettable. Feminine chaos is not a problem to be solved. It's an energy to be understood. It's beauty in motion. And when it meets masculine calm, it's not tamed. It's honored. That's when she feels the freedom to be fully feminine, expressive, creative, wild, loving, because she knows your calm will never collapse under her storm. That's where desire deepens. That's where intimacy becomes effortless. That's what makes her stay. Validation is powerful when it comes from the right place. A woman wants to feel seen, appreciated, and valued, but she doesn't want compliments that are laced with desperation. She doesn't want to be worshipped by someone who's unsure of themselves. The kind of validation that truly resonates with her is the one that comes from a confident, grounded man. A man who acknowledges her beauty, her mind, her essence without losing himself in the process. Neediness drains the power out of your words. When you validate her just to get something in return, attention, affection, or approval, it doesn't feel like admiration. It feels like pressure. Women can sense it. They know when your compliments are driven by insecurity, when your praise is a form of people-pleasing, hoping she'll choose you because you put her on a pedestal. That doesn't attract her. It repels her. Because deep down, every woman wants a man who chooses her from wholeness, not from emptiness. Real validation is clean. It's direct. It's honest. It comes from a man who knows his worth and isn't afraid to acknowledge the worth of others. When you tell a woman she looks stunning, not to impress her, but because you mean it, that's attractive. When you notice something about her that others miss, and you speak it without trying to gain favor, that lands differently. It's not manipulative. It's genuine. There's something deeply magnetic about a man who gives compliments and walks away, who can express admiration and still maintain his independence. That kind of energy creates mystery and respect. It tells her, I see you, but I don't need you to validate me in return. That balance is rare and incredibly powerful. When you give validation from a place of abundance, it makes her feel good, but it also makes you more compelling. It shows emotional maturity. It shows that you're not intimidated by her, that you can recognize her value without questioning your own. Women don't want to be put on a pedestal. They want to stand beside someone who sees them clearly and still chooses them, not out of lack, but out of alignment. And here's another layer. When you validate a woman's mind, her strength, her choices, not just her looks, you go deeper. Physical compliments are nice, but they're common. Emotional and intellectual validation is rare. When you tell her that you admire how she handles pressure, how she speaks her truth, or how her presence changes a room, you're telling her, I see you beyond the surface. And that's where real connection lives. So don't stop validating, but do it from strength, not need. Let your words reflect presence, not pursuit. Admire her without attaching your self-worth to her response. And if she doesn't respond the way you hope, stay rooted. You weren't giving to get. You were giving because you're a man who sees beauty and isn't afraid to speak it. That's validation without neediness, and that is pure magnetism. One of the most misunderstood aspects of women is the changing nature of their desires. Her mood shifts, her preferences evolve. What excites her one day might not move her the next, and to many men, this feels confusing or even frustrating. But here's the truth. Her shifting desires aren't a flaw. They're part of the mystery of the feminine. They're not meant to be solved. They're meant to be understood, appreciated, and danced with. The feminine is fluid by nature. Emotion, intuition, energy. All of it flows like waves. Just like the moon has phases, so does she. Trying to pin her down into something constant will only lead to tension. She's not inconsistent. She's responsive. She responds to her environment, to how she feels, to how you show up, to how connected she feels to herself and to you. That change isn't a rejection. It's an invitation to meet her where she is, moment by moment. Men often want clarity and stability. They want to know where they stand, what she wants, and how to keep her happy. But feminine energy doesn't operate on a fixed schedule. It's dynamic. It reflects life. Her changing desires are a reflection of her aliveness, and instead of resisting that, a strong man learns to embrace it, not to control it, but to respond to it with presence. This doesn't mean you become a puppet to her emotions. It means you learn to lead with awareness. You watch, you listen, you notice when she's pulled inward or reaching outward. You understand that her wanting space today doesn't mean she's done, that her sudden enthusiasm tomorrow isn't manipulation, it's her nature. When you stop demanding consistency and start offering curiosity, everything changes. The beauty in this mystery is that it keeps love alive. It keeps connection from becoming routine. A woman who feels safe to express the fullness of her shifting desires brings depth and richness to the relationship. She surprises you, challenges you, expands you, but only if you're not afraid of her emotional weather. The storm isn't meant to break you, it's meant to wake you up. When you learn to hold space for her changes without trying to fix them, she softens. She trusts you more, because you're not trying to box her in or tame her spirit. You're witnessing it, and in doing so, you offer her the freedom to fully be herself. That's rare. That's sacred. A woman doesn't need you to always understand her. She needs you to stay present with her, to not make her shifting needs mean something about your worth, to love her not despite the mystery, but because of it. That's where real intimacy is born, not in control, but in acceptance, not in predictability, but in presence. When you embrace her changing desires, you don't just love her, you truly see her, and that's what she's been longing for all along. The truth about female desire is far more layered than what society teaches. It's not about games or impossible standards. It's about depth, emotional resonance, and presence. Women desire emotional leadership, not control. They want to be chosen, not chased. They long for psychological safety, not perfection. Their independence is not a threat. It's a reflection of their wholeness. They're drawn to purpose, not just physical presence, and find deep attraction in masculine calm that steadies their emotional flow. They're moved by sincere validation, not needy praise, and their ever-changing desires are not confusion. They are the essence of the feminine mystery. To truly connect with a woman is not to solve her. It is to see her, to meet her with emotional maturity, confidence, and steadiness, to honor her shifts without fear. This isn't about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about growing into the kind of man who leads himself first, so he can lead with love, presence, and authenticity. When you understand these unspoken truths of female desire, everything changes. Connection deepens, intimacy becomes effortless, and what once felt like mystery begins to feel like magic, not because you figured her out, but because you finally chose to see her.